Grand Rising, everybody. Hope everybody's doing good. I'm here to do a new podcast on community and a new rising community and what that might mean and how that might look as people are searching for new ways of being in the world, new ways of engaging in the world, new ways of partnering with nature, new ways of existence, especially as things are kind of going crazy. So we wanted to just kind of talk about kind of our vision, what community means to us. How do we start to build a new community? How do we start to shift the narrative into spaces that, or holding a container for spaces that can hold this new paradigm or this new way of existing in the world as things unfold, change, like old structures are kind of just falling by the wayside. And then how do we build or rebuild into something that's evolved, right? But still
Mm.
honoring like that came before us, the things that came before us, and learning and then maybe restructuring and creating new things. So kind of what we're talking about today. And I think that some of that starts with dialogue and narrative, as I was saying, and being able to communicate effectively with the people that you're trying to build with.
Absolutely.
Kind of what
Vulnerability.
yeah. And that's kind of what we were doing earlier, right? Pam and I,
Yep.
talking, having these real life conversations, which I see happening more and more.
Oh
Um,
gosh, yeah.
uh Yeah. And so, I don't know, Pam, if you have some examples of just what it looks like when you have some, like, at least some kind of I wouldn't say a conflict, but what could turn into a conflict arise within a community and how to communicate so that you continue to build a community from that vulnerability, trust, and be able to say, hey, this is something that needs to be maybe addressed or talked about without feeling like it has to be this hidden internal struggle and then really not communicated out so that then it's held within the individual and it comes out in a way that's maybe aggressive or whatever, but just addressing things as they are.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with that is the ego, right? The defense mechanisms that are naturally built in and wired in our psychology. Um I think the more that we heal and the more that we face ourselves, then we're not projecting and mirroring so much like wounds, or taking things so personally. So when there are issues that come up, because that's where we're at, right? We're in such massive individual like life cycles and separation, that community has so many different looks and feelings, and so there is a lot of like anger and hostility and jealousy and insecurity that can arise when people come together. um, but I think from my own experiences, it was recognizing like I'm no longer triggered by this. Like I'm not going to take it personally, because this isn't actually about me. This is that person, expressing their point of view or their opinion, their needs, their desires, So it's like when we can just have that generous listening, coming from generosity, and not like listening so we can just talk and respond to people, like that helps people feel seen and heard. And that helps avoid conflict, I think, right there, when you feel understood at a deeper level.
Yeah, I think in opening the space for that dialogue to happen too, because like you said, the insecurities or the jealousy or whatever it is that shows up or arises in individuals tend to hold it in and not say anything about it. Out of fear, maybe shame is a big, big one, right?
Yeah.
And that shame is that cultivates some crazy behavior in individuals when they're not able to share kind of what's going on internally, and express it, and then insecurities, like,
Mm.
I think earlier, Pam and I were talking, and I myself was expressing some of the insecurities that came up around, um, partnerships in terms of not like intimate partnerships, but business partnerships, because there are, if you're, let's say you're partnering with someone and you're trying to build a new community, and then the insecurity of maybe feeling like abandoned, or
Mm.
like you're left to do all the work, and then the individual disappears, and you're like, what the hell? I just spent a lot of time trying to build this thing, and then again feeling kind of let down, like, damn, like, you know, because that does happen. Building a community is like, it's such a big vision for individuals, and it's not an easy task. Like, people will see the end result of a new community built, not understanding all of the kind of back end stuff that goes into place for it
Mhm.
to actually come to fruition. They just see the the end result. It's like that. It reminds me of that meme that they show where it's like the iceberg, right? And they show the
Yeah.
iceberg up and all this other stuff that's happening under the surface, right?
Yeah,
But
oh, for real.
and I think the cool thing is with this new kind of paradigm shift, at least what I'm seeing, is that these deeper conversations, these are typically people. So the new, what I believe is that these new communities that are going to surface, the new earth, as people would call it, are going to be communities of individuals who have done the spiritual work.
Yeah.
And a lot of what you said is like, individuals um understanding that it's not your shit. And
Yeah.
and and then the spiritual other spiritual person who knows that it is their shit knows that it's not your shit either too. They know
Yeah.
that it's their shit, and they're able to express it too. So there's this level of personal responsibility on both ends,
Mhm. Absolutely.
which
Which is
takes
so vulnerable.
and it takes a lot of practice,
Mhm.
um, for individuals to get to that point. But that's kind of, I feel like that's what we need in these new communities, are people who are able to say, let's talk about the real stuff, the real uncomfortable stuff, and not like face the shadow together, instead of trying to kind of sweep it under the rug. And I think in the Western world, we've done a really good job of sweeping our shit under the rug, right?
Oh
I
my
think my
god.
sister said this. She's like, it still smells like shit, even if you sweep it under the rug.
Oh, yeah. I
The shit's
mean,
always gonna smell like shit. I don't care how much perfume you put on it. It's just
yeah, for generations, for sure. Don't air it out. Don't let anyone know.
exactly. But we're going into a whole new way and a whole new
Yeah.
level of understanding. And I think for us to be able to have these real conversations about our traumas, I think we're the generation that's really working through the historical trauma, the ancestral trauma, the current immediate trauma that our parents have held. It's like
Yeah.
we're sort of like these transmutation centers that are
Yep.
are working to transmute, and it's a lot to do. And it's a lot of work. It's
Absolutely.
it's exhausting.
Yeah, it's painful sometimes, for sure.
Like, wow, we're here, and it's not just one individual,
Yeah.
and I think even in biblical times, it was the same thing. If you think about Jesus Christ or Buddha or whoever you want, it was a community of individuals that were working to transmute this very heavy energy, throughout the world. And they were kind of like, yeah, these kind of like posts or centers that were taking in a lot of this very heavy, dense energy and transmuting it into
Mhm.
love,
Yep.
which, oh my God, like I said, it's exhausting sometimes. It's like, can I get a break? I just want a break.
Absolutely. And especially once you have the awareness of it and you recognize, like, oh, there's like all of this other stuff happening on these energetic levels that are so outside of, the 9 to 5, and just kind of showing up how culture is set up now. And we know that, like, we can't function right? We can't, our bodies, our minds, like our energy fields, we can't function in this current structure. Like we need to be able to have a sense of safety, like around other people to let our guards down. You think about it, we've been in like the survival reptilian brain mode. It's just changed and shifted. We're still constantly subconsciously accessing and assessing like threats and dangers all the time around us. And I think it's just such high paced, fast paced that there's no sense to rest and relax and let the nervous system and that part of our bodies calm. And when you can have other people around you and really completely like let go, be yourself, not worry about judgments and fears about those insecurities, because you think you're this or you're that, too much. But knowing people are going to love you, people are going to hold space for you, literally hold you maybe like while you cry, um, like that shifts everything. And that'll be a beautiful vision.
Yeah, it will. And I think, I think humanity, I don't know that we'll ever stay there, but I think a lot of us can get there. And I think that's where the time, pardon me, the time that we're in is really recreating this space. Because people always tell me, oh, that, you know, they think that we're crazy for thinking that we could have an earth where people actually get along and love each other, and I understand why. There's
Yeah.
so much in the human it's already
Mm-hmm.
in our psyche, right? It's already there, like war and battles and shadow and our separation from love and all of this is already there. So it does make sense that most people are like, yeah, we can never get there. But for individuals who are completely doing the work and spiritually grounded, we know that it is possible to start a community that way. Will it stay that way? Probably not. But I do think that there are these pivotal moments throughout history where we had civilizations get to this point where a new community was necessary because like you said it just the human race could not handle all of the stress or whatever the weight any longer,
Mm.
and there was a breaking point. Typically, I think breaking points end up being this like war, and then it ends up in chaos. And, it's the natural progression of life itself. Like, it's nothing new. Humanity
Mm-hmm.
keeps doing things over and over and over again. Will they stop? I don't think so. Like, I know, but there are individuals who are paving the way for a new way of being, and it's kind of like the cycle kind of just goes over it. Like that's how I see it. It's like this cycle, this pattern that happens over and over with humanity, where we reach our breaking point, the whole system gets devoured, right? I mean, look at this, think about it, think about all the pyramids. Like, you even go to India, there's all these megalithic, huge temples, these, I mean, beautiful art, and no one lives in it. No one lives
Mm-hmm.
there. No one's even occupying, it's a museum. There's so you think about, like, these civilizations that have rose, into this great mighty power. You see these structures that were built, and you think, "Wow," but no one's occupying them. So we know that's part of civilization. We grow um, these great structures, and then they just go away after a while, and you're like, "What happened?" Well, what happened is what's happening now, is that, there might be a time when civilization, a lot of people die off and there's just a few people left on the planet, and maybe they don't have the wisdom and knowledge or the technology to build these great structures, so they start again. And I kind of feel like that's where we're headed, you know what I mean? We're
Mm-hmm.
headed to these smaller communities that are gonna be able to survive when maybe these bigger structures kind of don't. And
Absolutely.
and then, and so for me, it's like, yeah, this is a cycle, it's a pattern. Will we stay in that harmony? I think we're showing people how it could be, but that
Mm.
doesn't necessarily mean that's how it's going to stay.
Yeah, I think it's gonna take a while to get there, even. Um, it could take a couple generations before it becomes more balanced and we even really feel as a collective, right? Like it's not, I feel like right now we just kind of know the world is covered in war, kind of like everywhere in chaos, right? Inequality, hatred, just for people's beliefs or, daily lifestyles. So we know there's a massive imbalance between like the shadow and whatever, the light, the healthier aspect of consciousness. But so I think we're in that shift to bring it. It probably will take a long time to reach a whole planetary like vibrational frequency that is sustainable and maintainable, but that's what we're looking for. I feel like we're just all kind of sensing a deeper community, and it's not maybe like our neighborhoods and what like our local, kind of streets and businesses can provide us, but it's finding family. It's finding really like a deeper sense of family. And I always think of like the villages of like our indigenous ancestors and how they really thrived and survived. And yeah, they probably had conflict within and ways to, deal with hierarchy or whatnot. But there was still a sense of like everybody was taken care of and everyone, provided. You lived or you died like together. So, and I think we've lost that. Now it's like you can just put up a fence and block out your neighbor, and you can live in the same place for 30 years and not know your neighbors. So there's that point of like, yeah, I'm in a community, but am I really like engaged and gaining something? And that's the one thing that's coming out of the past year, especially for me, because I've been like you were talking about, people are looking for this, right? It's part of that new shift emerging. It's been like you're feeling called to find it, and it's been emerging more. So I think collectively it's showing up finally.
Yeah, I do too. And I think the people that are doing the work, so they always talk about the 144,000 or whatever it is and all this and that. And I think that's what it is. It's the individuals who are hearing the call. Does that
Hmm.
mean it's and with that stuff, I think people tend to use it as like, oh, it's only I. No, anybody can be part of that. And that number itself, biblically, I'm not going to get into it. And I don't know how people have thought about that number, but my
I've
belief is that,
heard it tied into twin flames, which I think we've talked about maybe before, but like 144, yeah, thousand twin flames that again were those portal energetic
Mhm,
gatekeepers. Yeah.
mhm.
Yep.
And that's it's not just like, oh, it's just for me or it's just for whoever wakes up to the call is what I believe it is. It's just wake up to the divine purpose, and you'll know what you're being called to. And it really is, in my personal opinion, that those individuals are here to help pave the way for a new earth, for
Hmm.
a new way of existing within the planet. And I think we've learned a lot, some of the theories that we like. I know I always go back to spiral dynamics, but I like it because it's an easy framework to understand. But
Yeah,
we're not
it's very
we're not
helpful.
going back. Yeah, and I don't know that we'll go completely back down the spiral. It's possible, but I think that we're learning from our mistakes into a new evolution of consciousness where we can build from our past mistakes and learn something from it,
Hmm.
and hopefully the next generation, kind of build something different, and it will. I mean, just think about the structures of the past. They were so huge and vast, and pyramids, and these big stones that they used. And then we went to these smaller kind of structures, right? Homes and adobes and stuff. I mean, it's just crazy how each generation, our civilization, sees the world in a different way, and then kind of structures it in a different way, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like,
No, it definitely
we
does. Historically,
yeah.
looking back at time periods and seeing the rise and the fall, absolutely.
I don't think that we lived in a mechanistic, scientific completely scientific world before. Like, I think we're more mechanistic than maybe our ancestors were. I have a feeling that they were more in partnership or maybe closer to what I call alchemy.
Hmm.
And you can get in not bastardizing it as much. I think our ancestors may have done that. I'm not 100% sure, but I do think they were onto something and they were a little bit closer, but I think they probably had catastrophic um backlash from that because I think they were really messing with things that they didn't know, kind of like the particle accelerator. Like, it's a very mechanical way to smash particles. If you look at it, it's a machine. You know what I mean? But I think our ancestors figured out other ways to do stuff like that and probably left to civilizations some catastrophic event, probably happened because they were maybe closer to understanding nature than we are. This era,
Absolutely.
very mechanistic. It's like they think we're machines. And
Right.
it's like we're not machines. Um
Well, looking at the Mayan calendars, like how many different varieties of calendars they had that could track the stars, and they would track eclipses that were to come, years in advance. So absolutely. Like I sit out there under the stars sometimes and really think like, wow, man, like to have that much time and energy to be like observational and then mathematic and statistical, like it's crazy. And we lack so much of that knowledge and wisdom and can't figure it out now. Yeah. So I think it like that's part of where we're kind of going back to and what we're craving is what we lost there.
yeah, and to include it and obviously transcend it, but also to
Hmm.
recognize this evolutionary process we've gone through right now too, which is very
Yeah.
mechanistic. There's something to be learned from that, and I think science is starting to learn from that. Like, oh shoot, now we have to use spiritual language to describe what we're seeing, in quantum physics. They don't really know what to label what they're seeing or how they're observing, at the smallest portion of our reality, right? When you look at that, it's a tiny portion. Um, how to use that and how to look at it. And so, I think with the new community or this paradigm shift where we're creating these new structures, I kind of feel and I know that these new communities are going to be more organic than they are mechanistic. Like they're going to go back
Absolutely.
to to the way of nature. You
Yep.
know what I mean? To the way of,
Absolutely.
yeah, because this mechanistic thing that we've created or the worldview that we've created in this paradigm has, I mean, I'm not saying it hasn't done a lot for us because it has. It advanced us in certain ways, but it also it's also done some damage in a certain way too, but we have to learn from it. And I don't even know, I mean, I think there's gonna be a split off. I don't know how you see it. I think there'll be a split off of individuals who totally will go into the technical era where there'll be
Yes.
AI,
Yep.
computer, digital, that kind of thing. And I think there'll be a split for people who are like, I don't want to be in that. I'm going to
Yeah.
nature and living off the land. I think there might be a separation on that level. Um,
Absolutely. I can see that. Yep.
mhm.
And then on the other side of that, eventually, like I think we'll come back together again as a humanity, like kind of just mirroring the separation from source and coming back to oneness seems to kind of just be a structural system the universe plays out. We mirror.
We do, we mirror.
Yeah.
Maybe the whole universe is a twin flame.
Right? Masculine, feminine.
Do you see what
Um,
I'm saying? It's like
yeah,
maybe this
no,
that from the beginning was that
absolutely.
split, you know what I mean? And somehow there was this struggle. I don't know because it's a possibility actually when you think about it, because really the twin flame is a duality, right? That was split.
Hmm. Yep.
That's, I mean, in simple terms, that's how I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. The androgynous energy that went into masculine and feminine, and then created from that and their own energetic, like, yeah, vibrational frequencies.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the longing to be back to wholeness again, to
Yeah.
oneness. And it's weird too because we come up with these narratives of like male versus female stuff, and it's not even that. It's we're
No.
supposed to be working together. Um, but we're so masculine right now. The energy is so masculine, and
Patriarchy.
I mean, it's just and it's not and that's the
Yeah.
thing too. It's like when you think about communities, right? Because the feminist movement, all these people, "Well, you feminine." No, I'm not a feminist. I
Yeah.
am for the balance between the matriarch and patriarch, which is not being expressed in the collective right now. It's just
Right.
not, period. And, I stand behind the rise of the matriarch, and her to reclaim her place on the throne, because what's
Absolutely.
happened is she's been caged. I almost see it like, the dragon in Shrek. I like to always bring movies in because I think it gives people visual, but I always think about it like in Shrek, like they've caged that the
Princess
dragon.
Fiona.
No, the dragon. They've
Oh, the
caged the
dragon.
dragon. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And she's this and then finally when she's loose, you know what I mean? It's like, but all she really wanted at the end of the day was to be loved. She didn't need to be caged. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because then she finds love in the donkey or whatever.
I
It's kind of
know.
funny
That's
story,
why
but
I'm
still.
laughing over here. Like,
But
I thought you
but
were going with Fiona, but
no,
I get it. No,
no,
that
not
inner
Fiona at
dragon that
all.
we cage up,
That's
right?
right. They have
Let your inner
caged her.
dragon out to go after your donkey.
Exactly.
Go find your jackass. No, just kidding. Oh man.
But if you see that you've caged the dragon too long,
Yeah.
if you're in a Game of Thrones is another good one where, at the end she just burns everything up. Her
Yeah.
fury comes out, and just she burns everything up. She doesn't stop. She doesn't find her donkey. She's like, "You pissed me off enough. I'm gonna burn it all down." So I always see us as this I always see the sacred feminine as this caged dragon who's trying to
Mm,
get out.
yeah.
I don't know why that's the visual that comes to me. And it's
I
like
love
you
it.
keep pissing her off and she's gonna come and burn down the whole village,
Yeah.
and pave the way for a new earth to rise too though, right?
Goddess
Because that's
Callie right there.
yep, it's Kali, and
Yeah.
so I think, it's so she can reclaim her place on her throne, not to which is rightfully hers, right? But I think I
Mhm.
feel the patriarch has totally caged her up and tried to lock her away. And that's kind of the visual that I get, you know what I mean? And then if you think about it, when you think about the mysteries, this kind of just came to mind out of nowhere. I'm like, interesting thought. But if you think about the great mysteries that they've kept from us, right? Because everybody's
Yeah.
constantly, those are great mysteries. Well, guess what? The great mystery is it's the sacred feminine. And they've
Mhm.
locked that away too. Because these
Yep.
men, while they run the earth, guess what they're using? They're using women's magic. They're using the sacred feminine magic and they're just caged it up, locked it away, and said nobody can have access to this information.
Right.
So all this
Same thing with the
magic.
sacred plant medicines.
Mhm. Yep,
Yep.
yep. And they're using it and wielding it for their own will. And really what it is that because if you see, they do honor the sacred feminine, these men. They do go to these, if you see their temples and stuff, even colleges, right? Alma mater, it's the great sacred mother, but women couldn't go to get education at a place that was honoring the sacred feminine. So basically, they're sucking her power,
Yeah.
caged her, sucked her power, and try to keep the feminine energy out. Because when we wield magic, it becomes tenfold what a man can do. So and that's why they're afraid. They're afraid. They're afraid that when women are called back to their magic, they know that things are gonna shift. And that's what's happening, and
Mhm.
they burned us for doing our magic, and then they took it from us, and then they tried to wield it for themselves. Yep.
Yeah.
Everything's just
Absolutely.
I did not think about that until just right now. It's all clear, you know what I mean? It's like that just like, phew, holy Jesus, that's what's happened.
Yeah, no, there's been so much suppression. Um, so much, yeah, denial and lies and cover ups. It's crazy. It's crazy. We don't even know. And that's the thing you were talking about earlier, like how we have to kind of transmute this heaviness for the collective, right? Because we have to heal the past to build and shift into the new. And it's like you don't even understand the heavy toll of what is really truly out there because it's been suppressed and hidden and lied and covered up for so long that we're channeling and tapping into energy that we can't fully see and understand, that and we're given this mission of clearing it away, so we can bring in these new blueprints for that, like new earth 5D, like whatever. It's insane. It's a lot. And like no wonder why we're all kind of just falling apart in some ways because it's a huge undertaking, and it's so painful and it's so infuriating. Like it just, like it really does upset me, like very much. I was trying not to swear there, but it does. It really infuriates me, and I've done a lot of work to intentionally heal that feminine that was like abused and infiltrated and just, yeah, so much. So I'm
So
glad. That was a
much.
cool insight that you had. Perfect timing.
Well, yeah, I think I just as I talked about it, I started to get these visuals of like
Hmm.
these men doing these rituals to draw upon the energy of the sacred feminine magic, but holding it in a locked cage, you know what I mean? Because that's how I see it. It's like they've tried to lock out the mysteries of the sacred feminine for so long.
Hmm.
Tarot was bastardized. That's a very feminine thing. It's our magic. The witches were burned for doing their magic. Um, everything that has to do with the mysteries of the sacred feminine were taken and destroyed, and
Hmm.
but in their confines of their own churches, they they created their own, and it honestly it's sorcery. It's not even magic, it's sorcery. They're using
Hmm.
dense heavy energy to control the masses. And it's crazy too because now that I'm thinking about it, the tarot itself, they weren't okay with tarot, right? The
Yeah.
full deck. And that's where that whole "you're not playing with the full deck of cards" comes from. Most people don't know this, right? I've talked about it before, but the the 52 deck
Yeah.
is the
Playing
minor
cards.
arcana
Oh.
of the tarot. It's the minor arcana of the tarot. Um, and they took out the major arcana, which is where the mysteries are, and that's actually where the high priestess sits, right?
Yep.
So literally they were okay with these playing cards being
Mm.
playing cards, which turned into casinos. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I've talked about this before. They've turned them into casinos to keep people asleep from the true mystery of what the tarot is. If you go to the casinos, it's literally the tarot on steroids. And it's missing the major arcana, like the entire thing. That's exactly what it is. And who owns those major casinos? Men. So for me, they took her mystery, they caged it, and they used it for their own will. And, so they've eventually someone's got to pay the price. And I think all of us are going to pay the price for it if we don't wake up, you
Yeah.
know, in some way. But,
Atonement for sure.
and then it's crazy because I get these visions of all of it and the interconnection to all of it. And it's like, whoa, like it's deeper. Sometimes I see the deeper depths of what has happened, just by getting flashes and visuals.
Hmm.
So I think it's crazy to me that, what's happening right now. And then I've told people, like, we're in for a ride. You know what I mean? I don't know how that energy is going to expel itself or how it's going to look. I think we're seeing some residue of it. Maybe people are starting to mentally go crazy because they can't handle it. You've got to get spiritually right at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
That's the void everybody's subconsciously looking and longing for and just filling it with material shit and don't realize it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yep.
and getting right and to connect and create new communities. That's
Yeah.
gonna have to happen, and it's having these dialogues, like you were saying, these deep,
Yeah.
deep, deep conversations where we could be vulnerable with each other and accept one another
Yes.
and work through our things together and hold each other in love and, you know, let people know I'm with you. I am with you. You
Mhm.
know, I can't carry your cross and burdens, but I'm with you. I'll
Yeah.
walk alongside you. I won't leave you, but I can't carry your cross because I have mine to carry. You know what I mean? So,
Absolutely.
so kind of you were talking about the fact that we put like these fences around our neighbors and we don't know them. One thing that I think individualism, mechanistic worldview kind of taught us too is to set boundaries that we didn't necessarily have. I think living in a tribe and all that, I'm not sure how much the boundaries were there. We did need to understand how to set those boundaries for ourselves, so that we can communicate, those things.
Mhm.
But now it's become too much. Like it's overly individualized, and we have a
Yeah.
whole and in the Western world, now we say in the Western world, we have a whole entire population of narcissistic behavior. It's on the
Yeah.
rise, right?
Yeah. I think all we can do at this point is really look and get creative. Like you're talking about that divine, feminine goddess energy of creation. Like what are we wanting for that new paradigm? What do we want to see emerge? What does community look and feel like for us and our children and our grandchildren? And I think it is that sustainability off grid, right? Everybody kind of be able to live with their own produce and trees and be able to like kind of live off the land in that instance, as well as having that emotional and social intelligence, and the ego is kind of healed and not all in the chaotic wiring of its psychology. So I don't know, that's what I think about and what I look forward to, and what I've seen with my children, kind of being able to have that moment of tap into community and play, and being able to be free with a group of other kids. And it was the most beautiful thing on when I did a community weekend in August, honestly. It was like, I don't know, like 3 year olds to like 17-year olds, all ages, and they all just took care of each other. They all played. There was not one argument, not one fight, not any pushing, shoving, bickering over anything for a whole weekend. We had a power outage and a thunderstorm and everything. You know what I mean? Like, it was just the most beautiful thing. And I can't ever remember seeing that as a child and experiencing that in a classroom setting or in home between siblings, you know,
Yeah.
not with those kind of age gaps.
No,
Um,
no.
and so to see them just take care of each other and stuff, and the adults being able to like take care of each other's children, regardless of the fact that we normally do plant medicines. Like this was a time where we stepped away from that, and we didn't have that. It was family focused. So for me, when I think about community, I think like, because we've definitely talked about plant medicines in a few of our episodes, and I'm just coming out of that weekend again. Like that's the hardest thing, doing retreats and connecting with people, and sharing a space where you're all on the same wavelength, and then you go back right into your space, into your home, into your town or city where you feel isolated and none of those people are around you. And so I think it's trying to cultivate that connection and cultivate healing, regardless if it's plant medicine or not. I'm just noticing, like in my world, where I'm going to create. Um, and I think there's so much growth and healing that I'm witnessing, and it's allowing me to see people at their absolute best, at their absolute worst, at their absolute, vulnerable and chaotic. And I've never been able to genuinely feel so much love and gratitude for other people, and not, and still know I have my own place. Like I'm still my own individual identity, and I bring my own, you know, energy into that circle. um, so I think that's where we need to kind of shift to be those creators of what's to come, and stop getting like lost in the past.
Mhm. Yeah. I I totally agree, and I think it's hard, like you said, going from one, kind of community to the next because I hear this a lot with individuals, where they're like, I couldn't say the same thing I'm saying with you with other people. They would think I was crazy and stuff like that. And I think it's true, but I don't think it's true. And maybe it's
Mm.
because I've cultivated and created a community where people know me. They know my story. I just say it, but also because I'm vulnerable enough to mention it, and then people open up their self once
Mhm.
you open up yourself. Like, it's just it
Yeah.
happens. Like, everybody has these things that they've gone through and that are afraid to express, but when you do go out to maybe what we call the I don't even know if I wanna call it the real world. I would say what we're creating is the real world, but when you go back out into the world after coming from, a weekend where you're connected to your spiritual community and you found your people that, how do you engage in the world
Yeah.
outside of that it becomes a challenge for a lot of people. Um, and I say just be you. And if they don't accept you, that is not your problem. I
Right.
like I'm not saying it's easy to get there, but I can tell you that that's the way I operate anyway. You don't have to operate like me, but I'm like, I am who I am. You accept it all or you don't accept it at all. To me, it's not my prerogative. But I can't stay in situations where, in other words, I can't socialize with the with pop culture, if you will. Like, I
Mhm.
can't socialize in that arena. I don't understand how to communicate in those spaces. Um, but you tend to start attracting individuals who are speaking your language, right?
Mhm.
Once you start to get clear about what it is that you're needing in community, those people will magnetize towards you eventually. You're
Absolutely.
going to magnetize towards them, and you'll find your community.
Yep.
Um, it's a natural thing. It happens organically. Um, the time to be lonely is over. So I think a lot of people like I've had this worldview or this point of view since I was like 3. That's as far back as I can remember, 2 to 3 years old. And, feeling completely alone all my
Mhm.
life, where
Yeah.
now this narrative's happening everywhere, I think. Most people are like, "I
Yeah.
can't talk like that." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" There's a lot of people who are talking about this now. There are tons of communities out there who are talking about what we're talking about. There are people who you can feel safe and comfortable and say, "Yo, I'm not from this planet. I'm not from here." And people will understand you. The
Yeah.
time of that loneliness is over, and
Absolutely.
community, it's time for us to unite as a community and hold each other in that sacred space because you no longer are alone.
Right.
You're not. It's just you're not. There are communities out there. Um, the journey that you do though has to be your own. The cross that you carry through this journey is your own. And that can be lonely and hard. You can't give your cross to somebody else. It's yours to carry. And you have to understand how to maneuver through that. But you do have these allies, kind of like the hero's journey, right? You have your allies
Yeah.
along the way that are here to help you through it.
Mhm.
It's
Absolutely.
just like with Frodo, right? He had to be the one to carry the cross, but he had people allies along the way, but he had to carry it, and they had their own crosses to carry.
Yeah.
Look at Sam. Sam wasn't like we were
Yeah.
movies. You
No,
know,
oh my god, I love The Lord of the Rings. That's, like, the best. No, that's a
I
great,
know. Well, look at Sam.
insp
Sam had his own stuff he had to carry. Look at Smeagol. He was
yeah.
trying to calling him
Oh my god.
names and trying to get in, put a wedge between the two. He had his own stuff going on too. People
Right?
forget that. It wasn't just Frodo carrying the burden. Like Sam had to help him carry that burden too, but he had his own shit going on, right?
Yeah.
So even Schmeagol had his own cross to, carry. The poor guy, Gollum or Schmeagol, whatever you call him. He had his own
No,
cross. So everybody had their own little cross.
no,
And
absolutely.
they all had to recognize that they had to carry their own shit, that they couldn't carry it for the other individual, right? Even Sam takes off and leaves. Doesn't he leave? He's like, "I gotta figure my shit out because I'm taking on your stuff and you don't wanna" you know what I mean? I'm like,
It's
it's not
heavy.
just about it's not just about the main character, everybody's going through it.
Right. Absolutely. We're all the main character in our own stories. That's why storytelling and that myth is something we have culturally lost because we're getting caught up in the narratives and the myths, like you said, pop culture of other people's stories that now becomes a fantasy to us while we're sinking into depression or whatever because we don't know how to get our life to be that kind of magic, even though it's all just a freaking illusion. So, yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's like we just need to shift focus on ourselves and what we can create and bring to it.
I
And I
agree.
totally, it's funny you're kind of talking about being alone. That was definitely one of the themes of my weekend. I had massive, like, because I was going to the fetal position when I'm heavy under, ayahuasca or shrooms or whatever. I take to the fetal position and I just pull myself as close and tight into a ball as I can, and I go into my journey. And in that space, it was the womb. I do a lot of womb healing, and I could see myself as this fetus, and I felt so alone. But it was like, no, like the perspective, like the camera kind of took a notch out in the scene, and it was like, oh, there's your mother, like there's the body that's carrying and holding you, like you're not alone. And it was so symbolic for again, the mirroring of the universe and how we're just connected to that. So it was like this parent and this child connection that I really got to experience, and seeing like the thing, like, yeah, I don't want to be alone. Like, I don't want to, like, I have to carry my shit, my weight, like you're saying, my ring, my cross. But I don't want to do it alone anymore. And I feel like I've done that. And now it's the time, especially with being in the middle of the eclipse that we're in. I think when we emerged this weekend, it's going to be in that 5D. It's going to be in that new earth territory that we've been laying the foundation for quite some time. Like, it's here. Like, the structure's here. Like, we're building it already, intentionally or not. Like, we're tapped into a collective consciousness. And this is where we just need to be more consciously aware of our desires, our needs, our wants, and what we're manifesting, because it's going to start showing up in our realities.
Yeah, it will. Good
Yeah.
morning. I think we're coming to an end on this, but I would say go back and listen to the podcast if if you're just joining, because we talked a lot about, the new earth and kind of the new paradigm and, what we see coming. And, I think for those individuals who are feeling like disconnected or that they don't have community, we're a community. We're here. You can always reach out to us. We have Women of Consciousness on Facebook. You can go to our Instagram. You can always message us. So, we're real people. We really will connect to you. Because it is a world community, and I think if we can join forces and let people know they're not alone. You're not alone on this journey, but you will have to carry your cross. That is
Mhm.
not something that you can just dump on somebody else. It's yours to carry. But guess what? There's always a Sam that's going to show up to support you along the journey or the way. And you're always going to be
Absolutely.
held in the belly of the mother, like you said, that womb space. So there's allies that are there. And I think we
Mhm.
tend to like forget. It's like focus on your allies because we are always focusing, not always, but I think people tend to focus on what's not there.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's how
what
the brain's wired, right?
yeah, it's
Negativity
like
and lack and all of the
yeah,
disappointment. Like, yeah, we have to rewire
yeah,
ourselves.
this propaganda, as my friend says, all the propaganda that's happening right now in the narratives and these, you know, narratives that are circulating throughout society and stuff like that, trying to twist and get us confused and not know what we are, who we are, all that kind of stuff. The propaganda keeps us stuck. That's why I always tell people rise above that narrative. The political narrative is propaganda, the sociological propaganda, all of it is just propaganda to keep you from you understanding that a new community needs to emerge. And that
Yeah.
new community is the individuals who are actually carrying the sacred soul, like they're carrying this calling or this legacy within them that's trying to manifest.
Yeah.
And guess what? There is a community. We're here. We're
Mhm.
here. There's other individuals, we just eventually need to have a collective where we all unite and come together. And you see pockets of those individuals coming together.
Yeah.
But we all need a network to know like, hey, we got you. We're here. You're not alone. And we hold that container for love and respect and honor. Not to say that we don't have our own conflicts, but we talk about it. We're able to have like an actual conversation without trying to go to war with each other, which is
Yeah.
like, we can have a difference of opinion and still honor it, you know what I mean? Which has just been lost in all societies, right? So there's a bunch of conflict but we're able to talk about it, discuss it and look at it and hopefully that we'll have a community that is based on that trust and connection and authenticity and generous listening and communication and all the things that get to happen
Mm.
when you're building these healthy communities. So yeah. Do you have anything
Abs
else to say, Pam, before we go?
um, no, I just think, like, we'll start seeing new leadership emerging. Like you were saying, the feminine rising up, on her throne and putting back her crown. I think it's gonna shift a lot of balance between feminine and masculine, especially, like, as we intentionally choose the healing path and integration path. So I think more shadow will be revealed of the collective in that sense, and new feminine masculine leadership will be that guiding post, like you were saying earlier, that integrates and formulates where we're going. So that's exciting. So I think for the people out there that have been doing the power recall and self
Mhm.
empowerment and confidence and
Mhm.
having to rise up in those roles, like, it's for a purpose. It really is. Like, do the work and allow yourself to elevate because
Oh,
it's time.
it is. Yeah, and he says the only person who's gonna take the crown is Lucifer at this rate. Yeah, I think, there'll be that power struggle for sure. That's what Pam was talking about. The shadow is going to emerge because there will be a battle of the feminine taking her crown. And of course there's gonna be a battle, if you want to call it Lucifer. Nobody just gives their crown up that easy, do they? No one says, "Here's the crown." But energetically, if you're talking, because to me, Lucifer is just the archons and the eons. It's that dense, dense, dense matter that
Yes.
comes in and
Yep.
and and tries to suffocate humanity. Is that the sacred feminine will rise, and that part needs to happen so that the patriarch and matriarch can reunite.
Yeah.
They've been separated for too long.
Absolutely. And
It's like
even
it's the
Lucy,
tragic love, the
right?
universal tragic love story.
Absolutely. Because even Lucifer stems from Pan, who was the nature, like the equivalent almost of Gaia in a sense, this nature deity. Um, and so, like, yeah, almost like Lilith and all of, like, the feminine that was stripped and taken away and suppressed. Like, the same thing has happened to even, like, that kind of masculine energy. So we need to look and see where it's been distorted and fix it and heal it and integrate it and
Yeah, and
see
that's
what
why we're
emerges.
like the wounded feminine and wounded masculine has to be healed internally within all
Hmm.
of us.
Yep.
Then we come together and we're able to have relationship with men and women together. Like that doesn't even happen anymore. That's just been totally distorted and lost in civilization and community. Where where are the healthy masculine energies and the healthy feminine energies? Those are what we're talking about uniting, because if you saw it as a tragic love story of the patriarch and matriarch being separated and controlled by these heavy energies. That's what's happened. And that's kind of where the separation is too. If you see
Yeah.
it, it's like, oh, men are better, women are, it's not a gender thing. It's this wounded sacred feminine and masculine internally that's actually magnified externally. And so we have to like heal that within ourselves And then once we do, then we can have these really powerful relationships with men and women together, which is what we're really needing. We need
Yeah,
these healthy relationships to be restored with men and women. And, I think we're all longing for it. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
And it's and calling names and men are bad or women are bad or all this stuff is just keeping us separated from each other when we should be working together. So the sacred feminine does need to take her crown, because I feel like, yes, maybe like if you said Lucifer, which would be very masculine energy, has sort of caged her and has not given her a place on the throne, and that's why we have all this issue. So women just need to hold tight, hold the womb space, and help these men heal. And same for women. Men need to hold a space for women to heal. So we need both. That's all I'm
Yep,
going to say. We need men to hold space for women, and we need women to hold space for men. We
absolutely.
need to stand closer together as humanity. Absolutely. And that's kind of where we're at with it. You know what I mean? So we got to heal ourselves, and then we can come reunite together, the feminine and the
Mhm.
masculine. That's what we stand for. Women of Consciousness is about healing the wounded feminine and masculine energies and reuniting them in sacred union.
Yes.
So there you go.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Awesome.
It's the new paradigm. It's happening. And from that place of conscious creation, we can co create with the
Yes.
universe and ourselves and our partners the new kind of world. And I think that's right, that new earth.
Mhm.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. So
it's
creating
exciting.
new Yes, it is exciting. So we have to go. We have a nice training that we're going to, but love and light. Follow us on Facebook, Women of Consciousness, or Instagram, Women of Consciousness. And if you want to connect with us, let us know. And yes, have a blessed day as well. And lots of
Yeah.
love
Have a
and
great
light
day.
to all the sacred brothers and sisters out there doing the work. Continue. We need it.
Yeah. Thank you. We love it. Bye.
Bye.